I want you to imagine a scenario for a moment. Picture yourself breaking your leg. It's a nasty break, a compound fracture.
Mm.
You get rushed to the hospital, surgeons set the bone, put a cast on it, they give you something for the pain. Medically speaking, you are a success story. The bone knits.
The illness is treated.
Exactly. But then you get discharged, you go home, and you realize you can't drive. You can't get up the stairs to your bedroom. You can't stand long enough to cook.
Right. The medicine fixed the bone, but it didn't fix your life. You need physical therapy.
We get that. We understand it intuitively with physical medicine. We expect rehab.
Yeah, we expect to relearn how to walk.
But when we talk about serious mental illness, conditions like schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, severe depression, we so often stop at the cast.
We do. We focus almost entirely on symptom reduction, stopping the hallucinations, stabilizing the mood.
And we forget about the life that was interrupted by all of it.
That is the gap we are diving into today. And it's a huge gap. For a long, long time, the assumption in psychiatry was, well, if you just silence the symptoms, the life will sort of naturally sort itself out.
But it doesn't.
History and data show us that's just not true. You can be symptom-free and still be completely disconnected from the world.
So welcome to the deep dive. Today we are unpacking psychiatric rehabilitation, or CIR. We've combed through practitioner toolkits from Boston University, academic chapters, and federal guidelines from SAMHSA to answer one big question. If psychiatry treats the illness, what treats the life?
It's a distinct discipline. It's really important we define it right off the bat because it can sound a bit like a buzzword. CISI is it's defined as a process to help individuals with serious mental illness reach their optimal functioning in specific roles.
Roles, that word is key.
It's the whole game.
Yeah.
We aren't just talking about feeling happy. We're talking about functioning as a student, a worker, a neighbor, a parent.
So the metric for success isn't just are you hearing voices? It's more like, do you have a job or do you have friends?
Ideally, yes. The goal is community integration, quality of life, and it's regardless of whether the symptoms have totally vanished. It's moving from a clinical view to a functional view.
And to really get why this is so radical, I think we have to look at where we came from. The sources paint a pretty grim picture of what they call the institutional phase.
Grim is an understatement. From roughly 1848 to 1955, the main intervention was just containment. You had reformers like Dorothea Dix who advocated for state hospitals out of real compassion.
Right. They wanted to save people from jails and poorhouses.
But these hospitals just occlude. They became warehouses. The goal wasn't rehabilitation. It was custodial care. You were fed, clothed, and kept away from society, not prepped to return to it.
Then we hit the 1950s and 60s. We get the first antipsychotics like Thorazine, and the whole philosophy shifts to deinstitutionalization.
Close the hospitals, send everyone back to the community.
A noble idea.
On paper, yeah. In practice, it was a disaster. We released hundreds of thousands of people who had spent decades inside. Their symptoms might have been suppressed chemically, but they had zero skills for modern living.
They didn't know how to budget, how to use a bus.
How to talk to a landlord, anything.
And this created the revolving door phenomenon we read about.
Precisely. People would be discharged, fail immediately in the community from stress or just lack of skills, and end up right back in the hospital. CIR was basically born to stop that cycle.
It's the realization that pills don't teach skills.
You got it. You can't medicate someone into knowing how to interview for a job.
Which brings us to the philosophical bedrock of this whole field, recovery. But the sources are very, very sharp on this point. Recovery in mental health is not the same as recovering from the flu.
This is the hardest concept for the public and, frankly, for a lot of medical professionals to grasp. In the medical model, recovery is binary. You're sick, then you're cured. You're back to baseline.
But that's not what we're talking about here.
Not at all. In PsyDR, we use a definition from William Anthony. He described recovery as a deeply personal, unique process of changing one's attitudes, values, feelings, and goals.
That sounds almost spiritual, existential.
It is. It's about living a satisfying, hopeful, contributing life, even with the limitations caused by the illness.
Even with. That's the phrase that changes everything.
There's a powerful quote in your stack from Patricia Deegan. She's a psychologist, but she also has lived experience with schizophrenia. She was diagnosed as a teen and was told, give up your dreams, your life's over.
Wow.
And she says recovery is about reestablishing a new and valued sense of integrity and purpose. She didn't get rid of the schizophrenia. She built a life that was bigger than her diagnosis.
This philosophy It really changes the language practitioners use. We see this in the person-first guidelines.
Oh, absolutely. Language shapes reality. If I call you a schizophrenic, I'm defining you by a pathology. It's a noun. It's what you are.
But if you say a person with schizophrenia,
The person comes first. The illness is just one attribute, like having brown hair or a broken leg. It separates the human being from the condition.
the sources also mention a debate around the word consumer. I've heard that used a lot, but apparently it's controversial.
It is. It was meant to be empowering,
Yeah.
to suggest you have choice, purchasing power, like a customer. But critics point out that in the mental health system, you often don't have a choice.
Right. If you're involuntarily committed, you're not exactly shopping for services.
You're not a consumer. So terms like service user or person in recovery are often preferred. They feel more accurate.
So we have the philosophy: hope, person first, self-determination. But let's get into the gears of it. How do you actually do this kind of rehab?
You need a mechanism, for sure. PSIR basically operates on two levers. If a person is struggling to function, say they can't keep a job, you can either change the person or you can change the environment.
Change the person, meaning teach them skills.
Correct. Time management, how to handle criticism, how to dress for an interview. That's skills training. But sometimes that's not enough. The skills gap is too wide.
So you pull the other lever.
The environment. You modify the world around them. Maybe they need a quieter desk, flexible hours, or a job coach who comes in with them.
The sources really highlight a framework for this called the Choose, Get, Keep model from Boston University. It seems incredibly structured.
It has to be. One of the failures of the past was just vagueness. Choose, get, keep is linear. First, you choose.
And this is revolutionary because typically doctors chose for the patients.
Right. You should work in a mailroom. It's low stress.
Hmm.
In this model, the practitioner helps the person figure out what they want to do.
And this involves something called a rehabilitation diagnosis, which is different from a medical one.
Totally different. A medical diagnosis names the pathology. Schizophrenia, paranoid type. It tells you the symptoms. A rehabilitation diagnosis assesses readiness.
It asks practical questions.
Yes. Does this person have the stamina to stand for 4 hours? The emotional control to handle a rude customer? The cognitive ability to learn a BES route? It maps the functional gaps, not the chemical ones.
So once you have that map, you move to get.
Which is the strategic part. It's not just dropping them at an interview. It's that DPI process: diagnosis, planning, intervention. If the goal is get a job as a library page, the intervention might be role-playing the interview 50 times.
Or writing the resume together.
Whatever it takes. And finally, you have keep. Because getting the job is one thing.
Holding on to it is another battle entirely.
This is where the long-term work is. If someone has a symptom flare-up 6 months in, the old response was, you're sick, quit the job, go back to the hospital.
The SIR response is different.
It asks, what support do we need to add so you can keep the job while you stabilize? It sees the role as part of the recovery itself.
There's a case study that just illustrates this perfectly. The story of William.
William is the classic example of what used to be called a hopeless case. He'd spent 13 years in a state hospital, almost entirely mute, withdrawn. In the old model, he was just unreachable.
Because they were trying to fix his entire personality first.
Basically, yeah. They were trying to cure the schizophrenia. The rehab team flipped it. They found out he had a desire to work, and they identified a specific role for him: elevator operator.
Which is genius when you think about it. It's a contained space, limited social interaction, repetitive tasks.
A perfect strategic match. So they didn't teach him how to make small talk. They taught him the specific skills for that role. What floor, watch your step, how to level the car.
And it worked.
He held that job for years. Was he cured? No. He was still withdrawn. But he was a functional member of society. He had a paycheck, a purpose. That's the victory TIR is chasing.
Okay, let's scale this up from the individual. The sources also detail entire program models. Two of them seem to sit on opposite ends of a spectrum: ACT and clubhouses.
They're very different, but they solve different problems. ACT, assertive community treatment, is often called the hospital without walls.
It's for the people who fall through all the cracks.
The highest utilizers of the system, right? The folks who stop taking meds, get evicted, end up homeless. ACT says, we are not waiting for you to come to the clinic. We are coming to you.
And it's a whole team.
A whole multidisciplinary squad. A psychiatrist, nurse, social worker, vocational specialist. And they're available 24/7.
The story of Alberto in the text really brought this home. He gets out of the hospital, moves into an apartment, and is just lost.
It's terrifying for people.
Yeah.
For Alberto, the ACT team was there every day. They weren't just prescribing meds. They helped him shop for groceries. They helped him learn to clean his place.
So it's very intense, high-touch support.
It is. But the goal is always to taper off. As Alberto learned those skills, the team stepped back. It's an adjustable safety net.
Now let's contrast that with the clubhouse model, because if ACT is about going out to the client,
The clubhouse is about the client coming in. Yes. A clubhouse, and the original is Fountain House in New York, is almost the anti-medical model. It's a physical place, but there are no doctors in white coats, there are no patients, everyone is a member.
and the central idea is the work-ordered day.
The philosophy is that what people really need is to be needed. In a clubhouse, the members run the place alongside the staff. If lunch needs to be made, members make it. If phones need answering, members answer them.
You're not a recipient of care, you're a colleague.
You're essential. You're part of a community that depends on you.
And that builds a social network. The example of Rosanna was really poignant. She got a job outside the clubhouse but kept coming back.
That highlights the issue of loneliness, which is huge. You can be integrated, you have a job, but still be socially isolated. Your coworkers might not know you have a mental illness. You feel like you're wearing a mask.
The clubhouse was her anchor.
It was her community where she didn't have to hide.
Speaking of jobs, we have to talk about IPS, individual placement and support. The statistics here are just startling.
They really are an indictment of the old system.
The sources say 2/3 of people with serious mental illness want to work, but only about 15% are actually employed.
It's a canyon. And it exists because for decades we used a train then place model. We put people in sheltered workshops, pre-vocational classes. We'd tell them, once you prove you can handle this for 6 months, then we'll look for a real job.
The readiness trap.
Exactly. And it turns out learning to assemble widgets in a basement doesn't prepare you to be a barista at Starbucks. IPS flips the whole thing on its head. It's place then train
Get the job first.
immediately. Find out what they want to do, get them the job, and then wrap the support around them to help them keep it.
And the data backs this up.
Overwhelmingly, IPS users are 2.4 times more likely to be employed than people in traditional vocational programs. It just proves that the best way to learn how to work is to work.
Now, we've been painting a pretty optimistic picture here. Empowerment, success, community. But, a deep dive wouldn't be complete without looking at the dark side. The sources get into the ethical minefield of involuntary treatment.
This is the third rail of psychiatric care. It's where the values of safety and civil rights just collide head-on.
We're talking about involuntary outpatient commitment, or IOC. This is when a court orders someone to follow a treatment plan while living in the community.
And if they don't, they can be forced back into the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And you have two very loud, very passionate camps here. On one side, you have groups like the Treatment Advocacy Center and Dr. E. Fuller Torrey.
Their argument is based on a condition called anosognosia.
Right, which is the neurological inability to recognize you're sick. The argument is it's not denial, it's brain damage that prevents self-awareness.
So Torrey argues that if someone literally cannot understand they are ill, letting them become homeless under the banner of civil rights is actually cruel. He uses the phrase rotting with their rights on.
It's a haunting image, and it's a powerful argument. But then you have the other side organizations like USPRA, psychiatric survivor groups, and they argue that coercion just poisons the therapeutic relationship.
If I have to force you to take pills, we aren't partners.
Exactly. You don't trust me. I'm an agent of the state, not your helper.
Yeah.
They also point to data suggesting that IOC isn't necessarily more effective than high-quality voluntary services.
So their argument is we don't need to force people, we need to engage them better.
If we had more ACT teams, more clubhouses, we wouldn't need court orders. It's a tension that the sources do not resolve. There's no easy answer.
And this touches on another layer of complexity, cultural competence. Because symptoms are often in the eye of the beholder.
This is so critical. Psychiatry is not culturally neutral. The classic example is eye contact. In a Western clinic, if a client looks at the floor while I'm talking, I might write down withdrawn, depressed, evasive.
And maybe up their medication?
Right. But in many Asian or indigenous cultures, avoiding eye contact is a sign of deference and respect to an authority figure. So I'm pathologizing respect.
You have to understand the culture of the person before diagnosing deficit.
Exactly. And that also includes the culture of disability, understanding communities like the deaf community or the psychiatric survivor movement. It's about meeting people where they are.
So stepping back, we've gone from the asylum to the apartment, from patient to person, from cure to recovery.
The arc of history here is really about the expansion of humanity. Psych challenges us to look at the potential in everyone. It operates on the radical belief that everyone, no matter how sick, no matter how long they've been in a hospital, has the capacity to learn and grow.
It refuses to write anyone off.
It asks the question, what do you want? And then, okay, how do we get you there?
And I think that's the universal hook. Whether you're recovering from a broken leg, a divorce, or schizophrenia, the goal is the same: to find a role that matters.
To be needed. That's it.
I want to leave everyone with one final statistic from the Rutgers research in our stack. It really stopped me in my tracks. There is, on average, an 11-year gap between the onset of symptoms of mental illness and the start of effective treatment.
11 years.
A decade of lost time. A decade of interrupted education, lost jobs, strained relationships.
It raises a profound question. We know recovery is possible. We have these tools, Choose, Get, Keep, ACT, IPS. We know how to do this.
So why do we wait so long to offer them? And what would our society look like if we treated people's goals with the same urgency that we treat their symptoms? That's something to think about. Thanks for diving in with us.
Take care.